Quick note from me, apologies for the scuffed audio recordings at the beginning, they were recorded on separate days. I couldn't really be bothered to re-record since this is like the third take now. It's a long video, so grab your popcorn, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, enjoy the video, and of course, have a great new year. Hey everyone, in today's video I'll be talking about my 5 best tips for improvement in general for beginners at Osu, or even anyone really, because, well, the Osu player base has grown up so fast recently, and there are many concepts being misunderstood or many beginners' questions being asked. Well, actually, these aren't necessarily tips, but rather some key concepts to think about as a beginner that can technically help you improve faster. Who classifies as a beginner? It's generally subjective, but I'm going to say that anyone with less than 100 hours is a complete beginner. You have literally barely started the game, and even if you have less than 200 hours, you're still inexperienced. So for all of you with less than 100 hours, this video is made for you, but this still applies to fairly inexperienced players as well. This video features a special guest, Bloo, a top player who plays for the UK team in the Osu World Cup.
What's up everyone? As Tony so kindly introduced me, I'm Bloo, and I've been a prisoner of this game for just over 5 years, and I've been a top player for about half of that. Now you're probably wondering what I'm doing on this video anyway, and well, to be honest, I love helping people improve and sharing knowledge about the game I enjoy. And when I was asked to be a part of this, I really just couldn't say no. So yeah, I'll be here later in the video to share my personal experience of improvement and really what I've learned from other top players over the years.
I just want to say that this is not an in-depth how to get good guide, step 1 do this, step 2 do that, etc. Because keep this in mind, there is no concrete step-by-step guide on how to get better at Osu, and there never will be. This could sound hypocritical since I've described a series of steps in my previous video. I'll clear up some misconceptions. I am not forcing you to do 98% of every single star difficulty you ever play for the rest of your life. It's not up to me to decide what you do after you finish your rehabilitation process. You can go back, re-download those jump maps if you deleted them and play them again. You can go back to playing for passes and all that good stuff. That's all key to improving as well. You'll probably realise that, hey, I can pass these maps at greater accuracy now. But don't feel like the objective of the game is to get 98% and move on. That wasn't the point of the video. The process described there, which basically says get 98% on the low star ratings and move up slowly, is only for that specific problem, and it's made to completely undo bad muscle memory, which cause finger locking, bad accuracy and inability to stream. You're free to do whatever you want afterwards. It's not a general improvement guide, and for sure it's not a streaming guide. Osu is not like any other game like, I don't know, League of Legends, CSGO or other games, where there are loads of informational, almost step-by-step guides. It's impossible to create such an in-depth guide because Osu is not like any other game you've played. It's a game based entirely on preference and is tailored to you. With the huge variety of skill sets available, and with the huge variety of personalities and people playing them, with their different takes and ideologies around the game, there is no guide that benefits everybody. With a competitive game like CSGO for example, the playing field is the same for everyone. You compete on the exact same environment, the map. You interact with the same things with the same mechanics as everyone else. Everybody has a similar objective. In the case of CSGO, it all basically narrows down to how do I beat the other team? And so you have to get a better understanding of the game or its mechanics to best your opponent. Some of these mechanics you have to perfect, and so there are guides on how to learn these mechanics. In Osu, there is no ranked matchmaking. Not everyone has a similar objective because it's a preferential game, and so they tailor their experience to meet their goals in the game. So think about what you want to do. You might want to be an all-rounder, you might want to FC certain maps, the list gets infinitely longer. And so it all comes down to the idea that you submit scores whenever you want and whatever map you want. You play however you want and no one is playing in the exact same environment at the same time as anyone else on their learning journey. People are learning in different ways and at different speeds, so there really is no structured training process to get good at Osu in general. The same way that one might say, there is no correct or right answer on how to play the game. That's the main reason why people tell you to play more, or that it's preference, it's literally all up to you. This video aims to provide key concepts that you should think about. It's not a guide that will teach you how to become a pro player and I'm not telling you have to do every single one of these points to get good at the game. Before we dive into the content, I just want to briefly say a huge thank you to all of you who've watched, liked, or even subscribed to my content after the previous video exploded. So thank you guys for joining our community. Every time I see one of these comments, I'm like, damn, I made an impact. And I'm really glad that it was useful. Thank you for those messages. If you love our support in the Discord, or you love our community, or you love my channel, please consider becoming a Patreon and get access to awesome features like our VIP chat and scores channels, a cool coloured name, access to my scripts and sneak peeks of video ideas, with lots more to come. Much love to our new Patreons Neo, Leon, S Sunny, Silviu, Xbar, Orksy and Social Distance. We're glad to have your support, but let's get back into the video. So I've been asked many times about questions like, do you have any tips for beginners? Am I heading in the right path? Should I do this or that? And here's a great one. How do I stream? And that's being asked from a guy for like 25 hours. Streaming is a hard skill to learn. It takes hundreds of hours and even longer to master. So don't be upset if you can't stream when you've barely played the game. It really is one of those harder skills. Anyway, here are the 5 tips dedicated to answering those questions, in no particular order. They are all as important as each other, but maybe that final tip is most useful. Timestamps for this video are going to be shown on screen right now and in the description. So without further ado, let's head into our first tip. Tip number 1. Don't worry about PP and rank, or rather don't make it your number 1 priority as a beginner. This is so important that it even applies to top tier players as well. We as humans love to visually see improvement, and maybe the idea of numbers adds to this obsession with rank. But I'm telling you now, PP and rank literally means nothing. In fact, it literally means nothing no matter what rank you are. It's not a good representation of your skill because some objectively easier maps, such as farm maps, grant more PP than most other maps. Don't get into the mindset that, oh, at this rank I'm expected to do this, or that, or this and that. Well, no you're not. It doesn't matter. No one should have expectations of you, and if there were any expectations, your enjoyment in the game would be the only one. Don't focus on farming, worry about that later. Performance points. I literally didn't know what this was until about 100-ish hours. I just loved to play my favourite anime openings. I did not care about ranks at all, and I really enjoyed playing the game that way as a beginner back in 2018. My top played is still 3 maps from like the 3 or 4 star range from 2 years ago. I'd go as far as saying that my most memorable and enjoyable moments in the game was the beginning of the journey and exploring the game. That just shows how insignificant PP and rank is when first starting out on the game. By involving yourself in this idea that numbers mean everything, you might eventually find yourself in this terrible mindset that PP equals improvement, which is not true. This kind of concept is detrimental to your mindset, and in a game like Osu, dedication, motivation and mindset means everything. Improvement happens in all sorts of forms. It doesn't have to be related to PP. A basic example is one day you had no idea how to alternate your fingers for a burst. You've only been single tapping sliders and circles, then suddenly after a few days of playing it becomes so much easier for some reason, and something as small as that is improvement. Don't let the numbers get to your head. Learning the fundamentals, exploring the game for yourself and enjoying the game for yourself is the most important. Let's talk a bit about what the fundamentals mean. I've been asked many times the question, can you check my profile and see if I'm doing good or not? Which is basically asking, am I on the right path? There is no right or wrong path in Osu. As I've said, it's a preferential game. How can there be a right and wrong way of playing the game if everyone learns it differently? But I suppose if you came from this beginner's video, you're probably asking it because you're scared of falling into that trap. So I'll describe the following concept as a better path than say, flick your hands up and down motion, 6 stars, jump maps, 30 seconds, 50 misses, 49%, fuck. Here it is. Learning the basic accuracy skills, reading skills and finger coordination skills for bursts, streams or more finger control patterns, as well as jumps. This all accumulates to the single idea of mastering the fundamentals. These fundamentals exist mainly between the low 3-star to low 5-star range of most maps, and roughly anything after that is no longer part of what I like to call the Osu fundamentals. Maybe a subjective concept, but that's my idea that I will talk about for the rest of the video. Anything after that is really just an extension or a challenge of those fundamentals if you think about it, to stretch them out into a more complex skill. Almost like an evolution. The basic jumps. They start at around the 4-star range. The peak of learning the fundamental jump patterns ends at around the mid 5-star range. Then we've started a path away from those fundamentals where it becomes particularly challenging. This is at the mid 6-star range, and suddenly we are introduced to the realm of cross-screen jumps at mid 7 stars and above. The chain continues to fast as fuck 10-star cross-screen jumps as of recently. Here's another one. The basic bursts start around the high 3-star range and evolves into longer, or I call them prolonged bursts, explored at the high 4-star range. We dive into the most basic forms of streams at low to mid 5 stars. Notice there might be a few sliders to give yourself a break. And then it progresses into the peak of the fundamental stream patterns, which is at around the low 6-star range. Here the streams are noticeably longer with less sliders and more circles. Then expanding into the more challenging side of streams, we have the high 6-star or low 7-star stream maps, which have streams that are much longer than the low 6-star ones, but also explore a bit of curvature or spacing depending on the map. And then the hardest of streams require really good flow aim, because there is intense spacing and odd curvature. These might be explored at the mid 7 stars or higher. And then we have Mirami, who's fucking DTing Sidetrack Day. Like what? This shit is 11 stars! Anyway, there are of course many other skills I could cover in terms of like their evolution, but that would take too long for the video. To ensure you have at least a chance of achieving the ability to do all of these complex skills, you have to master the Osu fundamentals, which take place at the low 3-star to low 5-star range. And there is no rushing it. This idea of evolving your skills is really important to achieving such a high level of play. You have to start from the bottom and grind to the top. You can't skip past and cheese high star ratings forever as a beginner and expect to improve. That's not how the game works. Shown that in the previous video already. You can't run without first learning how to walk. Mastering the fundamentals then allows you to actually have a chance at tackling the more complex skills. If you were one of these people in that video and didn't seek to solve it, then you would have never had the chance to do these complex skills like learning how to stream. That's why I made the video. The conclusion is that if you want to improve and make the most out of this game, you have to focus on the fundamentals and not the numbers like PP and rank. Bear in mind that when learning these skills, don't be ashamed that your accuracy on that map was lower than usual. You're new to the skill and so you're bad at the skill. No one, and I mean no one, including the pros, have reached their level on the first day. Bad accuracy at first happens to all of us. Continue playing the game, and with more hours and more experience in the game, the skill itself gets improved and is on the road to mastery. Let's talk about how you can best achieve that in my next tip. Playing a variety of maps with relation to the idea of play more, or rather play smart. You've heard it many times. You ask a very vague question like, how do I get better at Osu? And then you get the very vague answer, play more. But why have you asked such a vague question in the first place? It's because you're a beginner. You haven't explored enough about the game to ask a genuinely good question that requires at least a decent answer, and that all of your beginner's questions can only be solved through experience. I don't know, you could ask Magnus Carlsen for tips on chess and he literally said, play more. There is no fucking chess bible that he's recited rituals from to get good, and he's not going to sit there and explain the entire game and all of its specifics to you. It's your job to experience the game independently as a beginner to explore the skills that you want to learn, and that's what it means to play more. To play more doesn't mean to literally increase your hours played per day from like 2 to 20 hours a day, leaving you 4 hours of sleep. It doesn't necessarily mean retry that map 100 times and just don't retry 100 times. Play more means that you just haven't spent enough time in the game to understand how to solve such a simple problem. And so playing more revolves around the idea that you should just be patient and continue playing the game, which naturally ends up solving all of your problems and questions before you even realize it. It could be such a silly question like, how do I do doubles? How do I hit the slider after 3 notes? How do I play hidden? What do you want me to say? Like, You can literally learn how to do all of them just by playing the game for another few weeks or months to master those skills. You'll have answered all of your own questions just by playing the game. Take the initiative. If you suck at a skill, then continue to play maps that exploits that weakness. And then you could probably ask a good question like, what maps can help me with X skill? There is no secret formula. Incorporate it into your OSU routine. You know, in this case it was doubles or play hidden or whatever. That's what play more truly means, and it really means to play smart. Find your weaknesses, act on them. Being independent and self-aware really helps you to improve as a player. No top OSU player goes and asks questions every second of the day on Reddit or Twitch or YouTube, I don't know. They did it themselves. They just play the game and learn from themselves. It takes thousands of hours to get to their skill level after all. So what you should take away from this is that play more doesn't really mean increase your hours played per day. It means that you should just be patient and continue working on those weaknesses by playing maps that tackle those weaknesses. Again, one day you'll realize that you have solved all of your silly questions just by playing the game. Now I'll move on to the idea of playing a variety of maps. So play more. As I've said, you could instead call it play smart. And one of the smartest things to do as a beginner is to involve yourself in all of the fundamental skills that OSU has to offer. That's what it means to play a variety of maps. Being a one trick in anything is a major hindrance to your overall improvement. It doesn't have to be the jump one tricks, although that's a hugely common trend. It can also be stream one tricks. They're incredibly good at streams but not so good on the jumps. The concept applies for every type of one trick in the game. It's a major setback if you don't at least explore all the fundamental skill sets in the game as a beginner. As I've said before, lots of beginners in 2020 are not able to do the fundamental burst or streams because all they play is those farm maps with jumps only. Ensure you explore the basic jumps. Cool, but also ensure you explore the basic burst or stream maps. Then there's also maps with really odd patterns requiring just that extra bit of finger control or reading, collectively known as tech maps. But maybe you'd like to dive into some really old maps that test your high note density reading even further if you're that interested. Though maybe these kinds of maps aren't really beginner OSU skills anymore. Basically, it narrows down to three main varieties: jumps, bursts, tech, or even some or all of them at once. Lots of maps incorporate these skills in different ways, and the best thing you could do is download beatmap packs on the OSU website. There is a shitload of them, and you'll find that you could run out of space very quickly. That's only a good sign though. Playing a variety ensures that you cover all, if not most, of the fundamental skills that the game has to offer, so that it doesn't become a ridiculous bottleneck to your improvement later on. Specializing in a certain skill set is something that generally becomes more noticeable at higher levels of play. This does not have to be your concern right now, just explore as much as you can about the game. So my next tip isn't really a tip, but more of a discussion on the questions like, when should I move up in star rating? When should I play mods? When is the star rating too high? Or when should I challenge myself? Etc. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Don't follow the idea that only increase star rating after you get 98% FCs for like the rest of your life. I am not forcing you to do this for the rest of your OSU career. Only described it that way to remove bad muscle memory, but it's up to you to do what you want. And so my genuine advice for this kind of topic, do whatever the fuck you want. It's your OSU experience, it's not mine. I won't tell you what to do, and you should not expect anyone else to hold your hand. There is no increase by exactly 0.26 stars after you did A, B, and C. That's not how the game works. There is no defined structure on when you should move up. There is no right path, nor is there an in-depth guide. Star rating in itself is very vague if you didn't know, because I'm sure you found that one odd 5-star that's somehow ridiculously harder than the 6 stars that you play at or whatever you play at. These questions will no longer be asked consciously. When you have hundreds of hours in the game, you just naturally do these thought processes in the back of your head as you scroll through the song selection. A better question to ask yourself is, am I really comfortable with this star rating? A sign of comfort is that you're able to FC the star range with good accuracy in just a few tries if you really wanted to. But the definition of comfort is really up to you. Just make it sensible. After you believe that you're comfortable with your current star rating, then you can proceed to play higher star ratings sensibly and use your common sense to realize what that means. The realization that you can barely pass it or that you can't pass it at all is a very good indication that you're not ready to play it. The star rating is simply too high. But of course, by all means play the map if you love the song or the patterns, no one's going to call the police on you. Just don't stay around that star range forever. You don't learn how to FC 8 stars by constantly playing 8 stars, when the maximum you can FC is like 6 stars. It's a matter of increasing star rating sensibly. Then there's also a question of when is it appropriate to challenge myself, and the answer is, believe it or not, whenever you want. To challenge yourself basically means to play above your comfortable star rating and exploring skills that you have not mastered already, which tends to lead to lower accuracy plays for those challenge attempts, and that's normal. You always need to expose yourself to some challenging maps outside of your comfort zone, otherwise you'll never improve. It's the main reason why lots of people are telling me that they're hard stuck and haven't been improving a lot, but their accuracy is like 99.4%. They are too comfortable and not challenging themselves. Challenging yourself is important because you are exposing yourself to weaknesses and then you naturally get stronger over time. It's again like an evolution. At first it's barely a pass, then maybe a few months later it's a really good pass, and then not soon after that you are approaching an FC. But you can't be challenging yourself literally 24/7. You have to ensure that you are playing comfortable maps in your OSU routine and FCing them as well. Consistency, whether it's aim, reading, stamina, whatever it is, it's built upon having the ability to FC and proving it by actually FCing maps with good accuracy. You can't be consistent by playing for passes only, you know. The conclusion to take away from this is basically, ensure you're mastering the star ratings without rushing, but also challenge yourself from time to time. Now for the mods part. I really want to say whenever you want, the honest truth is that don't play them too early and don't focus on them so hard this early on. You will regret it. At the same time, there is no rank requirement for each mod either. Explore all of the mods that OSU has to offer, but don't make a single mod or a single skill set your priority as a beginner. Here's a common example that I see way too much. Don't slap HR on every map just because you love reading higher AR like AR 10. That's just detrimental to your reading ability because you're refusing to play maps that are of lower AR and of higher note density. I've seen this so many times, people saying things like, I can't read maps when there are too many notes, I have bad accuracy because I tap too early on low AR. Just take off the mod, just play it, just play no mod, I'll leave it there. As for the relax mod, I'm not sure whether this is actually a beneficial mod, but I'm certain that it is not beneficial at all for complete beginners at OSU. This topic needs its own video, but basically the hit window for relax is so much larger than normal play, and you don't train your tapping. Not good for beginners when you literally have to learn how to tap. Anyway, being a one trick in any mod is no good, so I'd say that tossing in a bit of mods here and there in your OSU gameplay is fine. If I had to give you a decent idea of when you should actually start to quote unquote learn the mods, finish learning the fundamentals as described previously, then go do whatever you want. Maybe stay away from easy for now, that mod also needs a video for itself, but honestly, the main difficulty mods like HR, DT and HD, you should play around with at some point to get a feel for it, but don't focus on them. Now some of you may be thinking, ah shit, he said don't be a one trick but I only play HD, fuck, I'm screwed. Well, maybe you are in tournaments, but for general gameplay this mod is different because it's almost a preferential mod. The skill that is affected is reading and nothing else. That doesn't mean the same thing applies for HR and DT. You shouldn't one trick these mods because they actually impact the difficulty of the map numerically. Whether it's AR, circle size, BPM, etc., it changes the map. HD does not. It only affects the way that you read, which isn't given a numerical value. No mod is definitely the way to go for general improvement at a beginner level. It's very efficient. I don't believe that heavily focusing on mods at this early of a stage is beneficial. Playing with no mods allow you to explore the key fundamental skills as mentioned previously. Let's talk about tip number 4. Don't compare yourself to other people. This is incredibly common. Now don't get me wrong. I know it's literally impossible to straight up stop comparing yourself to other people. It's completely natural and I know that. Sure, friendly rivalries are cool and I support this notion because it motivates you to play and get as good or better than each other. That's a healthy rivalry. These rivalries exist at the highest tiers of play as well, But that doesn't mean you should be demotivated or disappointed when you see other people doing better, or the more common case, improving faster than you. Like how that one guy with 200 hours is like 5 digit and you're still 6 digits. If you ask something like, I completed 5 stars at 20 hours, is that good? What should my PP plays be for rank 300k? Am I average, or what is the average skill? That's also a comparison to everyone who has ever played the game. It doesn't matter. There is no criteria that defines what's good for X rank. Hey, if you find that score good and you're proud of it, you don't need mine or anyone else's opinion on it. If you're happy, then I'm happy. That's it. Everyone improves at different rates and enjoys different skills in the game. That's basically why it's unfair to compare players in general. Truly revolving your gameplay and how it compares to other players on a regular basis, almost as your top priority, is what I mean by comparing yourself to other people. Don't get involved in it so deeply. It's unhealthy. It destroys your mindset. Having a bad mindset in Osu never leads to progress. Focus on yourself and being a better player than you were yesterday. The Osu experience is tailored around you. A better way to put it is, play for yourself and focus to be better than your previous self. It's your Osu experience and not anyone else's. And then you'll realise that you'll improve a lot faster with less setbacks and less things to stress about. Speaking of less things to stress about, let's talk about the final tip. Maintaining a simple mindset and enjoying the game. This tip acts as a connection between every single tip I've discussed today, especially the idea of maintaining a simple mindset. It means you are playing the game with no overcomplications and no stresses. Don't ask a billion questions when you're new to the game. Understand that there is no secret formula. An example of overcomplication, and I've actually been asked this before, will a heavier pen make you better than a lighter pen? Bruh, it's just a pen! How are you worrying about this? You shouldn't be worrying about such specific details when you're so new, as if knowing the answer will instantly make you better. Overanalysis and overcomplication revolves around the idea that you're asking so many silly questions that it becomes stressful because all you do is think about them. Try not to do this. The game is best learned from your own experience, so don't rely on someone else to hold your hand and teach you the game. That doesn't mean you should never ask questions ever, but just try not to question everything you ever do. Trust me, you fix all of your beginner problems, literally all of them, by just maintaining a mindset that goes like, whatever, I'm just gonna carry on playing the game. And that's how the top players become top players. They don't go on Reddit or ask on Twitch or YouTube 24/7 to ask questions like, how do I stream 200 BPM? They just go ahead and play 200 BPM maps with streams in them. They just literally play the game. People improve so quickly just by maintaining a simple mindset and playing the game for themselves, just enjoying the game for themselves. They're answering their own questions and relying on themselves. It seems that by being lazy about the way you approach the game tends to be more efficient than being overly proactive. That's why you'll find that so many players, even top players, tell you to just play more, with no further or detailed explanation. Also, don't tell me you're stuck at improving if you're like 50 hours in the game. Everyone gets stuck at some point, and if you put in the hours then you'll eventually get past it. Top players have spent hundreds or even thousands of hours on the game throughout many years. We are speaking like at least 4 or 5 years for players like WhiteCat, Vaxei, CookieZ. All the top players, they haven't reached that skill level overnight. It could be cross-screen jumps, difficult streams, difficult tech patterns. They weren't able to do it in just a few weeks of playing, so don't feel that you're lacking skills with barely any hours played. Alright, that's it from me. Let's have a listen to what Bloo has to say.
Hi again. First things first, enjoy the game. Over all else, this is what you should be aiming to do. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, including myself, has achieved what they have by not having fun playing the game. I mean, this is where all improvement stems from. Improving is fun, and that's how it should be. But what people don't realise is that when you try to learn an entirely new skill, it'll be a slog. It'll just feel awful because you're terrible at it and you'd rather stick to what you're good at. But then that almost answers the question of how top players get so good nowadays, right? They see a weakness and put in the work, the effort, and the repetitions in order to become better. For example, many people have asked me how I learned easy, and I can for sure tell you that it wasn't overnight. I was awful at it, but I decided to dive in at the deep end and get to work. Truth be told, I couldn't even read AR8, and it makes you wonder, why the hell did I even want to do that to myself? No, it wasn't a suggestion from asking around in Twitch chats or top players DMs. It was actually a series of podcasts hosted by HappyStick in the summer of 2017, where you'd invite the best or most well-known top players in the world at the time to discuss their experience and knowledge on one topic: improvement. Around this time, I was stagnant at around rank 4000 for a few months, and when this series started, I watched every single episode. There were countless tips throughout the series that I credit to my improvement, and I highly recommend that you all go and watch it for some further insight. I've asked Tony to leave a link in the comments, so yeah, go watch that. If you ever ask me how to get better at a certain skill, my response would be, how do you get better at tennis? And to put it simply, you play tennis. One common misconception is play more. This phrase really only applies to the incredibly new players, as just playing the game will cause you to improve exponentially anyway. It's when you're slightly more experienced that this phrase doesn't hold much meaning, as you need to focus on specific skills and aspects of the game that you're particularly bad at, and play more of them. As my last point, I want to say, the most important quote-unquote skill you need to learn is reading, which is quite the blanket term in and of itself, and it doesn't have to be the super low AR0 stuff you see in clips. Trust me when I say that if your aim is inconsistent or bad, improve your reading. The aim will always come so long as your reading is good enough. This applies to DT also. For example, one thing HVIC used to do before FCing maps with double time is play them through with no mod. If you think about it, it's simple why. Because the map's the exact same on no mod as it is DT. It's just sped up, the aim and the tapping is the same, but again sped up. It's the same patterns, it's the same map. Yeah, you can fit it together. Although, I don't want to take too much time from Tony's video anyway, so I'll leave it there. I appreciate being able to share some advice with you all, and before I go, watch the HappyStick Improvement Month, and please enjoy game.
So here we are at the conclusion. Enjoy the game. He was so interested in the game that he watched podcasts about it. Maybe you'll be relieved to hear that top players have struggled at first, like how he struggled with learning easy, but that's normal. Any player would struggle at first, so don't be ashamed with struggling. He said that the most important skill that you need to learn is reading. That is true. This topic needs its own video, but the best way to learn how to read at this beginner stage is to just approach the fundamentals and play a variety of maps. It's probably a painfully long video again. For some reason I am uploading ridiculously long videos. Here are the 5 tips once again. And as always, I've hoped you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please consider hitting the like button. Also be sure to subscribe if you love informational videos, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.